Hello, welcome to Who Dares Rolls TV. I am your host, Mike D, and today we were doing a review of sorts. Now, this Clank Legacy we're reviewing, this has been strewn with cowpats from the Devil's Own Satanic Herd. It has been just one long cluster of a review. I filmed a segment that had a whole run through of how Clank works to explain it to you if you've never played it, and then subsequently managed to delete that video. Now faced with the prospect of doing that again, frankly, I'd rather suck on something unpleasant than do that again, to be honest. It's just ugh. Then I filmed this intro and the other stuff and forgot to turn the camera on. So just generally, it's been a complete and utter bollocks. So I will continue anyway. We'll do the best we can with what we have. Clank, if you've never played Clank before, think of it as an arcade style, sort of 8-bit almost game. The idea is you're a bunch of adventurers descending into a dungeon area which has got a big angry dragon in it. And you're using a deck building mechanism to move and collect stuff and do things. And some of your cards in your hand will create clank, which is noise, which puts cubes into a bag. And essentially what happens is every time the dragon is nudged or annoyed or something else happens or someone picks a treasure up, the dragon awakens, cubes are pulled out of the bag, your color cubes will then hurt you. If you reach your 10th level of health, you die. Now, there is an area on the board where you're going down into, where you go into the lower depths to get the treasures, and it's kind of a push your luck mechanism. The first person to go in there, grab one of these lovely big treasures and leg it out and get out, will then trigger an end game system, which essentially is just this punishing assault of noise and clank and bag being pulled constantly, which will pretty much kill anyone who's too far down into the dungeon to escape. They score points. Anyone knocked out below into the dungeon area scores nothing. And that's it, really. It's that sort of stuff. It's a real fun sort of push your luck, entertaining, deck building mashup of board. And it works very well. Don't think too hard about how the mechanisms integrate with the theme, because it's a bit of a as an abstracted thing. But as a playable experience, it's a great deal of fun. So we're going to pass Mike, and he's going to discuss stuff. So how does Clank Legacy work? That's what you're here to find out. So it works pretty much using exactly the same mechanisms, the same ideas as the base vanilla Clank. What it does do is it brings you two map sides for starters. There's an overworld map, which is not really spoiler territory here. You'll work that out pretty quickly as soon as you get it out of the box. And there's an underworld map, which during the campaign, you'll be switching sides of the boards depending on what you're doing. There's also a big pack of stickers and a big box of cards. So at the start of every adventure, you will read a campaign intro, something that will set the scene, out of the Book of Secrets, which is lots of stuff in there, lots of entries. Usually they will then give you maybe some specific setup depending on that adventure. They can add patron cards which come out, which essentially maybe tweak the rules of how that one session will work, how maybe something will change just a little bit. And then you're off and rolling. You also get, as a new addition, is a clubhouse, essentially your base camp, which you can tweak, again, through completing missions, depending on what's going on. You can add apply stickers to that board, which will give you perks or tweaks or different ways of how the game will work in your favour in subsequent games. So that's an on-running thing. There's also some cards that will eventually go into your deck. You usually start still with the basic 10 cards, but as the game progresses, there is tweaks you can make to this deck. Potentially add stickers to some of the cards that do extra things or give you extra perks, and maybe even some cards that go into the deck to start the game with. As though essentially you don't really change very much from that basic first 10 deck of cards. They kind of stay with you for most of the game. The Book of Secrets plays a big part of the game, and what you'll get during as you're playing is that there is quest cards come out at the start of the game, as well as the patrons. So they will have areas on the map that have got waypoints, they're called. They're numbered waypoints. When you hit them, you then read a passage from the book. Now, the base game, as you get out of the box, will have some waypoints already pre-printed on the board, which are stuff to kind of get you rolling. You can go off and look at. You can do that in the first game, you can do it in the second game, you might come to it in the fourth game. There's no sort of hard and fast necessarily on when you do that. However, if the games like what we've played, what you tend to do is find is that everyone is kind of running to see, ooh, what is that going to do? Now, negatives, I think if there's only one, games can roll on a bit for Clank. Games usually zip by. There was a few moments in there where, especially if you're hitting a lot of waypoints during a particular round or turn, then there is a lot of slowdown in regards that you're stopping, reading the passages, making decisions, making changes to the board. But that kind of comes with the territory of Clank legacy games anyway. That was probably the only negative, really, is that if you get a rush of them in quick succession, there is this sort of, oh, stop, tweak, oh, stop and do this, and that general maintenance of what's going on and the end game stuff. But none of it felt a chore, and it's all, the story's well written, it's entertaining, it's funny. The only downside you could potentially have with Clank, it always was with Clank, is that essentially if someone is going to run all the way down and grab an artifact and run all the way back up and that's it, then you could find yourselves in positions where everyone else is getting royally screwed because that's happening. So that really comes down to your play style, who's playing with you. We didn't have too many events of that. Most people were kind of interested in digging into as many options as they could, seeing all of what the game had available. So yeah, there you go, Clank Legacy. It's a solid game. Comes recommended. If you're a fan of Clank, then I think it's a no-brainer. If you've never played Clank, as I say, I think probably Legacy is a really good place to start. I don't think you need to worry about playing base Clank. That, I think, is it. Okay. I may come back and revisit this at a later date. So there you go, that is Past Mike, me, everyone, we're discussing stuff, Clank Legacy review, all a bit of a disaster really. End result is, if I've not already covered it, Clank Legacy is a great jumping on point to the Clank series of games. If you've not played any of them, Legacy is a great starting off point. It's really great fun, and that's what we play games for. It's as a 4-player experience, as a Legacy experience, it's hugely enjoyable. It doesn't have any of those giant Legacy sort of mid-turn points in the game. There's none of that sort of Pandemic did and some other Legacy games have done where you're like opening big cases of boxes of goodies like C4 and all that. It doesn't have that, but it just has this solid Legacy experience which just delivers some very good humour and just some nice, comfortable, fun playing experiences and just some great choices. And at the end of the day, you're left with a playable board, so you can revisit your Clank Legacy world and play it through again and again and enjoy those little problems that you made for yourself as you played through initially. So yeah, it's a cracking game, really enjoyable. It's been raided and raved and about anyway by this point in time. If you've not seen any of that, then where have you been? But yes, Clank Legacy, cracking game. It's probably come down a bit in price now because it came out last year. So you should be able to get it fairly reasonably. If not, split the payment between a group of 4 of you, and it's a very reasonable purchase. It's a big fat box of stuff. And it's good fun, really good fun. It's just a pure game joy giving experience. It's not deep, it's not meaningful, but for that Clank experience, that deck building, the light feel and that board components going on, it's a huge amount of fun. We enjoyed every single game of it, and I certainly is one I want to revisit. So it comes highly recommended. Clank Legacy. Go and watch another review where they actually tell you how it works. But for the time being, if all you want to know if you should buy it, then yes, I say you should buy it if you don't own it. And that's that, really. We should do this more often for reviews. I won't explain anything. I'll just turn up and go, this game's bloody brilliant, and buy it. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for tuning in. I've been Mike B, and this has been Who Dares Rolls, and that was most of a review of Clank Legacy in some capacity or another. And hopefully this is recorded and we won't be doing this again because, frankly, you'll never see this review at that point in time. Cheers and goodbye.